Recently, Thing T Thing, or Thing Addams, has grasped us all in the palm of his hand in Netflix's Wednesday. Well, what if I told you there was more to him than we see on screen? Also, before we begin, yes, the T in his name also stands for Thing. So yes, his name is quite literally Thing, Thing, Thing. And if you were starting to get any ideas on making a drinking game for every time I say the word thing in this video, please don't. I don't want to be the reason you have to go to the hospital. Anyways, Thing Addams first appears way back in Charles Addams's 1954 book titled Homebodies. Although, unlike the rest of the Addams family, you never actually see Thing inside this book. Instead, the only reference we get to him is a sign outside their home which reads, "Beware the Thing." Interestingly enough, the rest of the Addams crew weren't officially named till the 1960s. This technically makes Thing the very first member of the Addams family to ever receive an actual name. But even though he's the first to receive a name, he's actually the last family member we get to see. This is because the creator of the Addams family, Charles Addams, wanted an air of mystery around him. And for years, this worked, leaving fans to theorize about what Thing could possibly be. Could he be a ghost, a wild dog, or maybe that's just what they called Pugsley?
But then you are feeling the little black monster.
Pugsley.
Well, over the years, fans got a few different answers on what Thing could possibly be. Sometimes he'd show up as an arm, like in the 60s show. Sometimes he showed up as two different hands. And sometimes he'd show up as a mysterious shadow, lurking around in the background. Kind of like the shadow that follows me around in my apartment. Ugh, that guy's creepy. With these details of Thing having hands and being a shadow, you might think, did Thing have a full body at one point? Well, in some of the early comics, yes, he was often portrayed as a full person, often being spotted as a young boy lurking around the mansion when no one else was watching, which confirms that he did at one point possess a full body, but with some slight differences. While it was never outright confirmed, it was rumored that Thing had a total of 8 legs. Gosh, leg day must have been a nightmare. Though rather he was a boy with 8 legs, a shadow, or a hand, it was obvious that the Addams family deeply cared for him.
What's that?
That's my friend, Thing.
What a charming helper.
He's been my companion since childhood. You don't think he's peculiar, do you?
Of course not. We must accept our friends for what they are.
Years later, when the Addams Family show aired in 1964, Thing was played by actor Ted Cassidy. But here's the thing. No, not that thing. Here's the thing. Cassidy also played the butler Lurch in the series. Thing would be portrayed as a hand, which would appear from a series of boxes placed throughout the Addams mansion, and the occasional tree as well. However, there were 2 major problems while filming these scenes. For one, Cassidy was very tall, standing at 6'9", so whenever he filmed scenes for Thing, he'd had to lay on his back and stick his hand up through each box, a task that would be uncomfortable for someone like me, who is around 5'10". I can't imagine being almost 7 feet tall and doing it. Not sure why they didn't just use a shorter actor, but well, whatever, I guess. It wasn't my choice. And the second issue was, like I said, he also played Lurch, making scenes with Thing and Lurch almost impossible if he played both parts, unless the cast of the classic Addams Family somehow invented cloning and didn't tell us. So the crew got around this by having another actor or crew member step in for those parts. However, even though Thing was played by multiple actors, when the credits rolled at the end of each episode, none of their names would appear. Instead, Thing was simply credited as itself, adding an air of mystery to his character even from the TV. Although no one knew what Thing was, we do know he wasn't the only one of his type of entity. In one episode called Morticia Meets Royalty, Gomez's aunt,
If it isn't Aunt Millie.
It isn't. It's Princess Millicent.
introduces the Addams to her handmaiden named Ladyfingers.
Handmaiden.
Allow me to present Lady Fingers.
How do you do, Lady Fingers?
who takes a fast liking to Thing. In fact, they even got engaged. And while Ladyfingers doesn't appear again in the 1960s show, she does appear in other Addams Family media, including 1977's Halloween with the New Addams Family and 1999's The New Addams Family, making her an official member of, well, the Addams Family.
They're engaged.
But she isn't the only one. Gomez's aunt actually fires Ladyfingers and replaces her with another handmaiden named Esmeralda. However, her employment isn't long, as she is discovered to be a thief after pickpocketing Gomez Addams. Besides Ladyfingers and Esmeralda, we also learn that Thing actually has parents. In the episode titled Thing is Missing, we see a picture of his mom and dad embracing each other, so I assume we can confirm Things come from a loving home. As the Addams Family grew into a bigger and bigger hit, so did Thing, following the Addams across different mediums, including the 1970s Scooby-Doo crossover episode called Wednesday is Missing, where he is shown as a green hand coming out of a box. While I have no evidence of this, I've always thought that this Family Guy scene was referencing that, as they like to reference other shows from Hanna-Barbera and Family Guy, like Scooby-Doo and the Flintstones.
Meg, I'd love to see you without your hat on. Okay.
Besides the Scooby-Doo episode, Thing also appears in the 1973 show where he is portrayed as a mysterious arm with stitches, connecting his hand to his arm, much like he appears in Wednesday, minus the arm. By this point in the series' evolution, Thing had remained fairly consistent throughout each portrayal. That is, until the 1991 Addams Family movie came out, making the biggest change to his character so far. Instead of being an arm inside a box, Thing was now a severed hand, which was able to move more freely, even appearing outside the Addams home. While most people loved the new change and thought it gave the character some much-needed agency, the creators of the original series did not like it at all, such as Seaman Jacobs, who said that showing Thing as a hand completely ruined the mystery of, well, what was on the other side of that hand. Which is kind of ironic, because Charles Addams, the actual creator of the Addams Family, didn't like that they showed Thing even as a hand in the box in the original show. But, despite protests from a few fans, most people loved Thing's new design. There's a reason it's still his main look today. The way they brought Thing to life wasn't actually by hiring an actor, it was by hiring a professional musician named Christopher Hart. He played him throughout the 90s in the Addams Family original movie, Addams Family Values movie, and the Addams Family Reunion movie. And while he did enjoy the role, it wasn't easy. He'd spend 12 to 14 hours a day putting his hand in awkward positions so the crew could get the perfect shot. 2 of those 12 to 14 hours were dedicated to shaving his hand and applying makeup to prepare for the camera. On top of that, Hart also spent months training his hand skills in order to give Thing more of a personality. Hart loved the role and really helped increase Thing's capabilities on screen. However, in 1998, a new magician named Stephen Fox played the role of Thing Addams for the series The New Addams Family, which carried on the portrayal of Thing as a hand, though he did appear in a box a few times to pay homage to the 1960 show. Sadly, we wouldn't get another proper appearance from the Addams until 2019's animated Addams Family film, which showed Thing as a hand, but this time with a watch containing an eyeball, allowing him to look around and express his feelings. He also had some very interesting tastes in the film. Hey, I'm not judging. Then, in 2021, he appeared again, still as a hand with an eyeball, but he also wore a glove, kind of like a jacket, which honestly looks kind of cute. Although in my personal opinion, no version of Thing Addams has become as iconic as 2022's Wednesday, where Thing is seen as a severed hand like in the 90s films. Although this time, he was covered in stitches around his whole hands, body, I don't know. But, like in the 90s, Thing was played by a magician, this time one named Victor Dorabonte. There you go. I probably did not pronounce that right. However, unlike the 90s film, Thing had a major role in Wednesday, even becoming a main character. Throughout the Wednesday series, we get to see Thing do several things like search for books, spy on people, and even get drunk. Yeah, Enid was confused about that one too.
Thing? Have you been drinking? How's that even? It doesn't matter.
But his role in Wednesday really made him a pop culture icon. He even managed to get a tear out of a Wednesday and the audience when he almost died. I haven't cried over something that weird since Marvel made me cry over a talking tree and a violent raccoon. While we learned a lot about Thing on Wednesday, there was still mysteries surrounding him that weren't revealed until season 2, where we learned the dark truth. Thing was once a normal hand that belonged to a boy named Isaac Knight, which is an anagram of Thing. I actually didn't realize that till researching this for this video, but yeah, Knight, Thing, it's pretty cool. But anyways, Thing was once Isaac Knight's hand, who got cut off by Morticia when Knight tried to use Gomez's electric powers, almost killing him, to save his sister from the curse of becoming a creature called the Hide. While Morticia cut off his hand and saved Gomez, the tower ended up exploding, killing Isaac. Although not all of him died, because Isaac's hand came back to life from electricity and became Thing Addams. And from that day on, he would serve the Addams family until in season 2, when Pugsley brought Isaac back to life, before he eventually found Thing again and sewed him back onto his wrist. Luckily, Thing was able to regain consciousness and save the day. And that's where we are today in the story of Thing Addams. Let me know your thoughts on him in the comment section down below. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you want more videos about media and stuff about autism and the workplace as well, please click one of the boxes on the screen right now, along with subscribing to my YouTube channel and my Patreon, as it really does help to support me. Thank you so much, and I will see you all next time. Goodbye.